All right, so Chris Mancini, Executive Director of Save the Harbor. We'll get into a whole introduction in a moment to give you a frame of what we're doing here, but I really appreciate everyone coming out in person, all the folks on Zoom, to have this discussion about what we value about our beach, especially about America's first public beach here in Revere. So before we do that, I would just like to thank Mayor Keefe, Representative Jessica Giannino, and all the electeds here for hosting us here at City Hall, and turn it over to Rep. Giannino, who is also a commissioner, the representative from Revere on the Metropolitan Beaches Commission. Representative?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I have the pleasure of introducing the next speaker, Mayor Patrick Keefe. But before that, I want to take a moment to acknowledge some of our elected officials that have taken time out of their night to be here with us. First and foremost, I will start with our Ward 5 councilor who represents one of the areas that's primarily impacted by climate change on Revere Beach. She represents the Point of Pines and the Riverside neighborhoods in Ward 5. Basically, all of her district abuts either Rumney Marsh, Revere Beach, or the Point of Pines River. Angela Greeno-Sawaya. We're also joined by Councilor at Large Juan Jaramillo. Juan also chairs the Climate Committee for the Revere City Council, one of the new subcommittees that he started up when he became a city councilor. So I know this issue is really important to him. Thank you, Juan, for being here. And we're also joined, yes. Never want to cut your applause. We're also joined by City Councilor at Large, who's also wearing two hats this evening. So we're in the City Council chamber, so we're grateful that Councilor at Large Bob Hass is here. He's also State Representative Lydia Edwards' District Director, so he's here in both capacities. And I'm also really grateful that my counterpart in the city of Revere in our state delegation, who I'll welcome up once he gets settled, Representative Jeff Turco is here as well. So before I offer some thoughts and remarks, I want to start by introducing, for some welcoming comments, our Mayor of the City of Revere, Patrick Keefe.
Thank you, Madam Rep, and thank you to Save the Harbor, Save the Bay, and the Metropolitan Beaches Commission for being here, Chris and team. Something that when we talk about the city of Revere, we think about its city and we think about its vibrant resources, we think about its people, and we think about its industry. But we tend to sometimes forget that we are a beach community, and it is certainly one of our most valued assets. We love it. That's one of the reasons why many people have chosen to stay in the community. That's why many reasons why people have chosen to move into this community. And I think it's unbelievable. When you go up and down the entire coast of Massachusetts, you have so many great natural resources, and Revere Beach is definitely one of the top resources. Certainly, in my opinion, maybe I'm a little bit biased. I happen to be the mayor of this community, but I know that everyone in this room values it, and it's unbelievable. It's really exciting to have people at state level, like Lydia Edwards, like Jessica Giannino, like Representative Turco, that value this asset as much as we all do, and share in that vision for Revere. But ultimately, it's important to have stewards at the state level. So when Jessica Giannino and our representative, former city councilor, lifelong resident of our community, a lifelong family from our community, is up at the state house fighting for us and making sure that we are taking care of this unbelievable resource, it gives us great solace, and it makes us feel very warm that we have someone like that championing for us. But we all have to be champions and stewards of our environment as well. We have to understand the footprint that we leave behind, and we need to make sure that we're continuing to protect our resources, whether it's the beach, whether it's the riverside, whether it's our salt marshes. We have a huge obligation to make sure that we protect our beaches and protect our natural beauty for a lifetime, for generations to come. And we're always committed, so I'm thankful to host, and we're thankful to have you here today, and we want to make sure that everyone shares in that responsibility together. So thank you for being here today, and we look forward to seeing what we can do.
Thank you, Mayor Keefe. And before we introduce our next speaker, I want to take a moment to acknowledge a few other special guests that are here with us tonight. And I think every community partner that's in this room today is special because you're taking the time out of your night to be here. But I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Lieutenant Don Bossi, who took time out of his day to be here. Lieutenant Bossi is the commander in the state police who's in charge of the Revere Beach Barracks. So he's someone that we're in contact with constantly in the city and the state in terms of working on Revere Beach, making sure people feel safe, because without feeling safe on our beaches, everything else, built in a foundation of that. So Lieutenant, thank you for being here. We're also joined, yes, love all the applause, this is great. We're also joined by someone that's very special to Save the Harbor, Save the Bay and the Beaches Commission, longtime commissioner who's now retired from the commission, Carol Haney. Carol, thank you for being here and for always being involved. Our next speaker, I'm so grateful that he's my partner in the State House. He's a champion for the city of Revere and also the community of Winthrop. His entire district is incredibly impacted by our beach and our coastal communities. He's been a champion in helping me with our issues surrounding being an environmental justice community and all of the things that come with that, including facing climate change and the variety of environmental issues that we deal with as a state and as a city. Jeff Turco.
I gotta get myself one of these fancy vests, Mr. Mayor. Look at that. Thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words. I'm so happy to be here with my colleague, Rep. Janino, a true leader for the city and widely respected up at the State House, and I follow in her footsteps as the Dean of the Revere delegation. So I thank you for everything you do for the city and for me personally as well. I thank the Mayor. What a great partner you've been since you hit the ground running, and I look forward to getting a lot of good stuff done. And let's not forget your predecessor. I mean, we're so blessed, a community like this, representing Revere and Winthrop, to have the DCR commissioner that, lived and breathed the issues that we're talking about for his whole life. And now to be in a position as DCR commissioner to make sure that we have an open ear at DCR to talk about these issues, I think is so critically important. So Commissioner Rigo, we're thrilled with him. And frankly, what a first, sort of a, the governor's a first, being the first elected female governor of the Commonwealth, and her team with, Mara and Kim, their commitment to the environment, their commitment to environmental justice communities. I think that we're going to benefit from that, having a secretariat level climate change leader that can come and listen to our concerns and help us. When I was a teen, I worked for the late, great Billy Reinstein, who's, everyone knows, the famous rep from this great city. And, Billy, all I ever heard people call him for was, can you help me with housing or help me with jobs? And my family was one that asked for help with housing at one point. But housing or jobs, housing or jobs, those are the calls that Billy got. Well, today, since I've been the rep, I get calls for two things, either help with housing or climate issues. Flooding at the Riverside, flooding at the Pines, flooding in Winthrop, whether it's on the Marsh. Joanne McKenna calling me saying, I don't want this fixed tomorrow, I want it fixed 3 days ago. We got to fix this. And so when you look at what's happening to Beachmont, you look what's happening on all sections of Winthrop, completely surrounded by water. I mean, the most basic of storms that are now causing massive flooding, it really is an eye-opening experience for everyone, even for the most ardent skeptic, I think has to open their eyes and say, hey, we need to fix this stuff and we need to take this seriously. And so, Congresswoman Clark deserves a lot of credit. Last year, she came and announced a $2 million federal earmark that's going to help build a vegetative berm down at the Riverside area, which hopefully will help to alleviate some of those concerns once we get this up and running. There's so much good stuff going on. All of you, Chris, your team are all partners in this, and I really look forward to working with each and every one of you to make this community and this area much safer and much more climate resilient. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative. So before we get into the reason why we're here tonight, I'm just going to say a few words because I'm really, really excited that we're here in Revere, my home, in the council chamber where this all started for me. It's truly been an honor to serve on the commission and working with Chris and Save the Harbor since I got up at the State House in 2021. The work that this organization does and what it offers for the city of Revere has been really quite incredible. For anyone that doesn't know, Save the Harbor started years ago and was one of the first organizations that started in the Boston Harbor cleanup. So the reason why I could jump in Boston Harbor on Sunday with Chris and a bunch of other crazy people to raise money for the Beaches Commission and for programming on our metropolitan beaches is because of the work that they did 30 years before that to make sure that Boston Harbor was clean, that it was safe, and that it was a place that we could actually enjoy, that we could swim in Constitution Beach, that we could, Revere Beach was always pretty great, but, the other beaches that surround our community. They've done really incredible work, and since, meeting those goals that they had, they've expanded. And now, as Chris mentioned, they cover from Nantasket to Nahant and everything in between. And when we look at our community and we look at how everything from the Causeway and Nahant to Nantasket Beach is impacted by climate change, we are the heart of that. Revere is a barrier beach, and we're one of the very few barrier beaches in the North Shore. And for those of you that don't realize how important that is, it is incredibly important to our ecosystem. We're surrounded by Rumney Marsh to one side of us and Belle Isle to the other side. And that ecosystem that surrounds our community is incredibly important. That's the feeder fish that go to Boston Harbor. That's natural carbon sequestration that affects the carbon that goes back into our atmosphere and all the carbon that comes out of the city of Boston and how that goes back into keeping the air that we breathe clean and all the awful toxins that come out of the incinerator, all that carbon back out of the marsh. We won't go into that tonight. But I'm really honored to be here to be a part of the work that Save the Harbor does, to represent my colleagues on the commission, Chairman Modero and Chairman Crichton, who are the chairs of the commission, could not be here with us this evening, but I'm really excited that we're having this hearing in the city of Revere, and as Chris mentioned, they're having them throughout the Commonwealth in between Nahant and Nantasket to make sure that every community's heard, because we know everyone can't get to the State House, we know everyone can't get to Boston to share those opinions. So today is about Revere. For me, every day is about Revere, but this is really about Revere. It's about Revere Beach. It's about what matters to you. So I look forward to diving into those issues, to hearing about what your thoughts are, and we're going to take all those and listen to what other communities have to say as well, and make sure that when we bring these back and do our report, that this all goes into what we make for recommendations, come next year. So look forward to getting into this. I'm going to hand it over to Chris Mancini, and I look forward to continuing this conversation tonight. Thank you all for being here.
Representative, you did most of my work for me, so I don't have to do a lot of my presentation now. This is great. I have a very brief presentation. Mostly what we want to do is hear from everybody here. So I'm going to do a brief introduction and kind of frame what we want to talk about. We're going to break into 2 or 3, 4 small groups and have people talk together for 5 or 10 minutes, come back together, share a little bit, and then we're going to do one more breakout. We've got till 8 o'clock, but if we get done early, that's up to all of us. This is the first step of a process. We started actually last week. We did a workshop up in Lynn at the Lynn Museum, and now we're here in Revere. We're going to go town to town in our watershed, so to speak. We'll be in Winthrop, we'll be in East Boston, South Boston, Dorchester, Quincy, and Hull over the next couple of weeks. But we're not doing just one conversation. We're not just coming and talking to the folks who were able to show up today. We're going to be back. We were just talking with Ozma about coming to an iftar dinner in a couple weeks. We're working with some of the youth groups in different cities, Linraw Arts, some of the groups down here. We're going to try to talk to as many people as possible. And what we want to hear, I don't know if we can pull our presentation up at this point.
Recording in progress.
Hey, all right. The Metropolitan Beaches Commission, as Rep. Giannino said, has been around for a while, making recommendations on the improvement and maintenance of our public beaches. This really started, and Carol, you're very familiar with this. You were there from the beginning. It really started with, we have clean water. Let's tell people about it. Let's get people using these places. And what do we need? And we had groups like this come together. We were at the Jack Satter House. We were at all different places. And that's how we figured out, we need more trash barrels. DCR needs to empty them more often. We need to fix the bandstand. There's steps over here that are breaking down. There's a need for programming, and that's what helped create the Better Beaches program, which helped start the the Sandcastle event, actually, years and years ago, was part of that first round of grants. And then we did that for a number of years. We come back together every year, we look at that stuff. And then over the last couple of years, we just put out, our last report was our Breaking Barriers report. This is what we did over COVID. My daughter learned how to make sourdough bread, and I talked to 800 people about how to improve equity and access on the beaches, and came up with some really great actionable recommendations that you're starting to see put into place. And I can't tell you how excited we were when former Mayor Arrigo became the commissioner of the DCR already in the 1 year that he's been there. He's someone we had a relationship with through, and he's someone who understands these beaches and their importance, and we're already seeing more action on that, on some of these recommendations that are in here. So this summer at the beach, you're gonna start seeing welcoming signage in multiple languages on all of the beaches. You're gonna see mobility mats and floating and sand wheelchairs more present, and an increase in some of these programming aspects that people have asked for. And as we spoke together as the Beaches Commission, we said, all right, well, what's next? Well, we spent billions of dollars cleaning up the water, and we spent another several $1 million connecting people to the water and to the beaches. And now we're facing this existential threat of, are we gonna even have these resources? Things are changing. And so we really wanna come to this conversation from that point of view, that, well, change is inevitable. How do we adapt to change, and how do we enhance our relationship with the waterfront so we don't have to envision a Bay State without our beaches? So that's what we want to hear from folks today. Whether you're an elected official, the city council, a rep, you're all here in this room today. And again, this is not the last stop, but we're gonna talk about how we use these beaches so that the commission and Save the Harbor can take all this information. And we're in conversation with folks at UMass Boston, Woods Hole. You know, Juan, you're leading the climate, committee? Yeah, all right. You're all more familiar with some of the things that are going on here than even we are. We have an idea of the principles and things like that. But it's really important to us. We really prioritize. There's so many conversations about this happening, but we're really coming at it from this lens of how do we think about the beach itself? And how do we adapt, and how do we, if at all possible, save these resources for the next many generations? So yeah, all of our pictures. We can keep going on the slideshow, because I kind of did all these slides just in that last bit. But there we are with Commissioner Arrigo and some of the reps last summer releasing this report down on Carson Beach. All right, let's go to the actual reason we're here today. All right, so what we want to do, it's a little bit of an icebreaker, but it's actually a secret feedback process. So we'd love for you all, you're all sitting in some areas, maybe break up into 3 or 4 groups. We'd like folks to kind of get together for 5 or 10 minutes and think about, what's your perfect day at the beach? How do you use it? Are you someone who likes to walk the beach every morning? Are you just a swimmer? You want to get out there in the water? Is this something you live on the beach and you just look at? The perfect day is actually just looking out at the sunrise, and it's just always there. There's so many ways. So we want to take, again, 5 or 10 minutes. We're going to break up. We're all going to come around and join a group and just hear from folks, take a couple notes, and then we're going to, folks on Zoom are going to break up into their own group, and then we're just going to kind of report back. We want to hear from everyone. We want to keep all these notes because this is going to be part of our feedback process. So I don't know if that's still up there, but get together, talk about your perfect day at the beach. It's 80 degrees, you wake up, you look out the window, I'm going to go to the beach, or I'm going to do my typical routine. All right, so we'd love to have each group kind of pick someone to come up and just for a minute or two share what folks in your group were saying, and we'll have this on the recording, and just hear how people are using this beach. Can I get a volunteer to come up first? All right, Tony, that would be great.
Okay. Well, I've lived in the city for all my life, 89 years. And the beach has always been very important to me. That's why I stayed in Revere, because I live on the beach. And I was just sharing my thoughts with Chris about the erosion. And that's my biggest concern about Revere Beach and all of the beaches. And after the blizzard of '78, when Point of Pines Beach was leveled, we had a group of citizens that planted all the shrubbery and the grass and so forth and so on, and now we have nice high dunes. And that's helped the Point of Pines, on my side, on the ocean side, immensely. It's just wonderful how that happened. So I don't know why they couldn't do that along Revere Beach all the way down to the Circle, or any beach as far as that goes. And I have seen it done just this winter on the Gulf Coast, where they had a devastating storm last year, and they're renewing that beach and the walkways there, and they're planting the grass all along. And where they haven't finished, that's where all the sand comes. It's in everybody's yard. It's over the sidewalk. And the places, and the grass is probably just this high, makes a big difference. My other thing that I'd like to see is, I know this is maybe just impossible, a bike path along the beach.
And what did you say about the way you use the beach?
I use the beach to walk, to swim, and to ride a bike.
Thanks so much. Next group, maybe someone from our group with Rep. Turco. Oh, wait, we got Charlie coming. Sorry, guys.
So our perfect beach day led off with clean sand, clean water. Thankfully, our water's cleaner than Honolulu, so we've solved that. And sand, our team does a great job. Obviously, the biggest issue with Revere Beach is the amount of sand that gets taken off, right, through all these storms. We prefer a not too crowded beach. We did have a public safety official in our group, so it's skewed that way. But our events are perfect in the sense that it's a nice balance. You know, I know people like to say that there's 1 million people at sand sculpting, but that's not a true number. The actual number last year was 56,000 people on Revere Beach the Sunday of sand sculpting. We used geofencing to capture that number, and it's plus or minus a few thousand. And then we also talked about our vision for volleyball on Revere Beach. It's become a hotbed in the community through our high school teams, and it's something that it's made for that sprawling beachfront. We viewed Revere Beach because it's not a deep water port and it's a sound, that it's a great place for non-motorized sport. Whether it's kite surfing, which we already have, but that's kind of run out of somebody's house, or access to kayak and canoes, that's in our vision. And then we really loved when you go to the beach to have it tell you a story, to be able to read something. I mean, it could be wayfinding, it could be plaques or markers, but to walk along the beach and to learn about its history, and to just be able to gather information as you move was something that was really important to us. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
All right, so not many swimmers in our group, so our ideal beach day was more so on like the walk to watch the sunrise, sunset. We were more on the side of like things like entertainment on the beach, whether that's like food trucks, little pop-up shops with vendors, art. Everyone loves free stuff, so maybe people handing out free stuff. And yeah, people watching is always fun. So even buying food or like sitting down right along the seabed is nice. So yeah.
Great, awesome. And we have one more group or two? All right. You guys have a reporter? Who's reporting out from your group? Oh, there you go. We were camouflaged.
Daryl's handling business, always working. What I'm concerned, I'm the city councilor for Ward 5, which is the gist of the ocean. It's basically, I have Revere Beach, Point of Pines, Oak Island, and Riverside. Riverside this year alone, the past 3-4 storms, the water has come up and over, and it's actually consumed almost all of Riverside. It's very scary. So whatever we can do to help them, I don't think a berm's going to work. I think they need dunes or a seawall, but whatever we can start with now would be very beneficial to them. The Point of Pine side, we had a couple of brilliant people that were working there that started the dunes, started putting Rosa rugosa and all those bushes that actually keep the water from coming up and over, which has really saved the Point of Pines area. We need help over at Oak Island from Rumney Marsh. Whatever you guys can do to help, that would be amazing. Our perfect day at the beach is a gorgeous day in the sun, laying out in the sun, playing, having the kids play, and making sure that it's clean and we don't get the call that there's sewerage in the ocean, which has been happening a lot, especially last year. But other than that, we love Revere, we love the beach, and thank you.
And from our Zoom group, can our Zoom folks be heard if we?
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, we have some answers. Hi, everyone. I'm Joy. I work at Save the Harbor as well, and I'm also the co-founder of the Boston Harbor Women of Color Coalition. And to describe my ideal beach day is kind of just being out there. I like to head out there in the morning and be there all day, and just go from swimming and laying out in the sun and then going back to swim and then eating lunch and then laying in the sun and then swimming, like all day until the tide comes in. And that's kind of my ideal day, just kind of whatever I want to do on the beach. Awesome. Ralph, what about you? We had a good conversation.
Hi, I'm Ralph DeChico. I actually am from the city of Revere, as I mentioned, and I run the Commission on Disabilities and lead the EDA coordinator. As of Joy mentioned, I'd like to be able to go to the beach and relax and enjoy. But thinking about not only myself, a special day at the beach is for people of all abilities to be able to go and access the beach and be able to enjoy it like everyone else. So that's the ideal day at the beach. So I'm thinking not only for myself, but for other people.
So, and we also had Damaris, if you wanted to answer too. It was really nice to have you involved.
Yeah, thanks. I think my perfect day at the beach would be to see everybody enjoying the beach, and especially kids, for them to be able to safely play in the beach. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, on to the second part of our workshop here. Are we able to get our presentation back? It's all magical. Look at that. All right, so about 2 or 3 years ago, we put together a very brief report called Imagine a Bay State Without Beaches. We looked at all the communities we've mentioned from Nahantana and Tasket and did some using the data from Woods Hole. This is the current situation at Revere. You all recognize the map. There's the beach, there's the marsh behind it, there's the low seawall that we have. And then looking at flooding in inundation zones, and this is the kind of projections. And it's a little, like Rep. Giannino said, this is a barrier beach. That means, it's intended to protect the inner area, but obviously we've got a marsh behind it. So any type of hurricane or high storm, this is why we're seeing the flooding at Riverside, and we're seeing these massive storms. It's not just here in Revere. I live up on the Swampscott-Lynn border, and when that tide comes in, the manhole covers pop right off, go flying into the air. It's dramatic everywhere. So again, we're kind of want to have the next 15 minutes as we think about these things. If this is kind of the worst case scenario, and this is the direction we're heading, there are different options out there. And I'm sure folks in this, we've already talked about vegetated berms. We know there's larger seawalls. We know there is cobble berms. There's lots of ways to address this. Again, what we just heard from all of you about an ideal beach day, unsurprising here in Revere especially. It's less predictable in places like, say, Lynn or Quincy, but I'm not surprised to hear that people want to be walking and biking along the beach. They want to be in the water. You want to see people out there. This is, we ask the question because we have to ask the question, but I'm not surprised. So, we're listening to all this stuff and we're starting to put together kind of a vision of how to prioritize there will be a follow-up written survey. I will warn you about that. But so that we'll get this back up when we are asking the question, but if we can go to the next slide. And we have a Google form as well, which you can feel free to scan the code, or it's also on your handouts, is that right? So you can use that as a reference. But it's a similar conversation to what we just had. Again, we're going to take about 10 minutes, maybe 15. And we want to answer this question. What do we need to prioritize as we adapt to a changing coast? And keeping in mind, we might not be able to have everything. Right, so that's great. So I want to break back into our groups, and I want us to talk, brainstorm, think this through, because it's not a straightforward answer. It's not like, well, we want to make sure there's a beach, because if that's the answer, then that might mean we have to think about what happens to all the roads and the buildings, right, if we want to keep a beach. But so what needs to be prioritized? And think about all the options there. I'm not going to lead you more than that at the moment because I want to leave it a little bit open. But we will come. Feel free to ask if you have any trouble with this. But again, break back into groups. That's the big question here. What should we be prioritizing? How do we? What's the legacy? The great grandchildren should have. What do you value that you hope they will get to experience about the coast here in Revere? Any questions? Does that make sense? I'm not seeing any hands. All right, back into groups. All right, we're gonna come back together. We're gonna keep this show moving. I'm gonna start with the Zoom folks this time. I don't want you guys to feel like you're left out here. So I don't know if the Zoom folks can hear us, but what did you guys talk about? What did we hear, and what is gonna be the priority as we're looking at a changing coast?
Joy is our facilitator. Good thing for Joy to be here.
All right, Joy, you're the facilitator. You always wrangle the Save the Harbor staff into.
Ralph and Damaris had a nice brief conversation, and I think the consensus that we came up with is just still addressing that disconnect between climate change and accessibility on the beaches. So, for example, when storms are happening, we've witnessed, I know in Hull, even when I see a storm, the rocks and the sand, and I know that the ramps are breaking down and people can't get on the beach. So being more proactive around and having a quicker response around that maintenance, around the impacts of climate change on our beaches, and that it impacts the accessibility. And be more proactive around things like drainage and et cetera, and also allowing the opportunity for nature to do its part. So instead of working with more manpower, working with nature so that we can be kind of more sustainable in solutions. So that's what we came up with so far. Ralph, is that the gist?
Yep, that's correct.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Damaris, good?
All right, fantastic. All right, back into the room. Who would like to, I'll go back to the volunteer. Oh, right, hand goes right up. Why don't you come on up and. This will just help the folks who are watching and.
Very good.
Yeah, no pressure.
I will do so. I'll do my best. Hi, my name is Donna Nugent, and I grew up in the city of Revere. I became a teacher, okay? A teacher for 24 years. I'm semi-retired. Came back to Revere. Very disappointed. And very disappointed for my own reasons. I came in late and I shared them. But let's go through what our group said first. First, our group was concerned about what's happening in Winthrop, correct? No? What's happening in the marsh? In the marsh, okay. And that was brought up by Ms. McKenna, I believe, this week? Joanna? Okay. So that was one issue. My issue was, I grew up when there was a time when there was a beach, and there was a lot of fun, and roller coasters. And then we went through a process, right? And it was a pretty good process. Many people believe that the overdevelopment that happened on the beach was a good thing. You get to go out to have a drink, it's snazzy, it feels like New York. But I feel like we lost the essence of a beautiful place. The first beach in America, am I right, Jessica? The first beach in America, am I right? Thank you. So we have a great place, and we built building upon building upon building. And it felt like nobody had a say in it. I used to drive by it and say, oh, look at that. Another building grew up. The issue is, at least are they being responsible with green infrastructure? Are they? That's my question to our politicians. Will we have a library that will produce green infrastructure, maybe on the beach? And are the buildings now that are on the beach have ever considered developing green buildings? The Mass Teachers Association just had this meeting last night, and throughout Massachusetts, schools are learning how to rebuild their schools, because it's not about us, we'll be dead, it's about the kids. That's basically, anybody else want me to repeat anything else that was said in our group? Oh, yeah.
All right, a few other points that came out of our group were protecting like the wildlife down there and any like natural habitats that exist on the beach are important to us. Making sure I think you touched upon it, but that the beach is accessible for future generations, even if it's not like the same beach that we're kind of all living in right now. Natural barriers to flooding, repairing the seawall, and then also like preserving the history of the beach as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Can you say that more about the history of the beach? What do you guys mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned to that point, I'm 24, and so I'm too young to remember when there was like entertainment down on the beach, but like I grew up hearing about it, you know, like the roller coaster, all the entertainment things people could do down there. And then now, even when I walk down the beach, like I'll walk down and I'll be like, wow, it's changed so much. I remember it when there was like abandoned lots everywhere. Now it's like apartments, nice restaurants, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do think I always grew up with like an appreciation of what it was like for like the people who enjoyed the beach before me. And even now, like seeing some businesses that I grew up going to, like not there anymore, like Banana Boat, for example, or like other little, or like the old Bianchi's, little things like that. I think it's important to like remember what people used to enjoy before you entered that space, so.
Go to our middle group. Don't be shy, we're all friends.
I wanted someone else to talk.
The one thing we did bring up is we wanted to see more handicap accessibility on Revere Beach per se, and maybe some activities like waterboarding and those water bicycles that are on the beach. I don't know what they're called. Paddle boarding, rowing, do different things for the people on the beach. But the one thing that I'm constantly talking about is coastal resiliency, and I can't help but talk about coastal resiliency because we're just in the middle of everything, and it's very dangerous where we are, and we need help with keeping the water away from the homes whatever anybody can do to help us, that's what we're going to need. Government funding, city, state level, everybody, because the water is just coming up at such extremely high tides that they did a coastal resiliency study, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago, which as of right now is absolutely obsolete. What they predicted in 50 years, a lot of that has already happened. So what we need to do is really fast pace everything, because the water doesn't wait for us. It's like Mother Nature, the coastal erosion, the levels of the tides. I think it was 14.8 feet back in January, and I think it was 13 point something feet back in February. We need help. We need help, and that's the most important thing right now. As much as I would love to keep, adding things to the beach and making it beautiful, it is beautiful. Revere Beach is our first public beach. They can't take that away from us. The state and the city does a really good job trying to keep it clean and everything like that, but we need help saving the families and the residents that live along the coast. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So first, thank you to Rep. Gino for hosting this and her partnership to our city as it relates to climate issues, and thanks for Rep. Tarko for joining us today. One of the things that we talked about in our group a little bit are about, as it relates to coastal resiliency, is ensuring that we're protecting homeowners and residents, and when given the opportunity, finding alternative or creative ways to give back the land to nature, right? And I think when the opportunity presents itself, I know there's some innovative things that are happening around the country around giving that nature back, those natural protective barriers that can keep our residents safe and can keep our beaches still accessible, because the alternative is if we don't begin to implement creative paths to natural barriers, we could create non-natural barriers that will remove accessibility to the beach for us. And I think that would be such, speaking about the rich history that our city has in relationship with the beach, speaking about losing that access to the beach, I know would be really detrimental for our community, for the folks that have been here for a long time, and for the new folks who really enjoy the city, particularly because a lot of the folks that live here are working class folks, folks who don't have the means, don't have extravagant means, I should say, and removing access to a green infrastructure that is a beach, as I think of it, would be just really heartbreaking. And so those are some of the things we were talking about.
Good evening, everybody. We spoke about basically the same things that everyone else in this room did. They talked about why they love the beach, what they like about the beach, people that have history, recorded it back into the 1890s, Don, is it? 1899. With the state police, the city itself, what the beach used to look like. And to get to having water sports, let's do Red Bull and wave surfing. Great thing to do. They'll sponsor it. But to get to anything like that, we need to have the priorities correct, and that's dollars. Everything everyone's mentioned is going to take a lot of money, plain and simple. So you got to focus on your dollars, figure out the return on investment on either dollars spent or infrastructure, be it that you do wave research to understand how the beach shore flows and how it takes and detracts from itself as time goes on, or is it worth taking and investing in hardscape structure to take and protect it that way? So those are the things we need to do. But the one thing that I heard everyone talk about, and especially this young man, made my point come home. I don't know the memories. We need to record our process of what we're doing here and now and what this is about so that we can spread our message to the other communities that are involved in Save the Harbor, Save the Bay, and to get our state, which has got a wonderful PBS programs that do stuff about this, and it's a hot topic, to get this spread so that more people understand, so that we can attract money, because I heard someone mention that there are dollars there, we just got to be able to take and work to get them properly. And since I'm in the arts, all I try to do is take and do grant writing. And it's not an easy thing. It's a very specific thing. And if we're not grant writing specifically and using AI so that we're at the same level as everybody else that's doing that, we're not going to get that. So today I'm going to challenge anyone in this room that says Revere Beach isn't what it was when it was. There's all the new scape on the Revere Beach. All I ask you to do is do this. Turn you 180 degrees and look that way. It is probably one of the greatest views in the world. And that's ours. And that's never changed. And I've been going to that beach since 1955. Thank you.
This was great. I learned a lot of stuff already tonight. So I want to kind of bring it home. And I think I have one or two more slides up there. But what we're going to do at the very end here is we heard Aaliyah and I have been taking notes, and we're going to put a couple kind of general categories up on these voting sheets in the back. Everyone's going to get a couple of 5 stickers, little circle stickers, very simple. And you can use those 5 stickers any way you want. You can put them all on one thing. You can put one on 5 different things. You know, so we want to get kind of like one more way of collecting feedback on your way out. But before we do that, and it's fine to call this out or to come up to us afterwards, we want to know who isn't here that we should make sure we talk to in this process. We're going to be doing this process for the next 3 to 6 months before we put anything into writing. And where should we go in Revere to meet people where they are? So we want to get we're going to want to talk to hundreds of people at the minimum. So this is where we're starting. Like I said, this is our first conversation. Who's not here? We know there's plenty of people who couldn't make it tonight and had other things going on, but we're happy to go meet them where they are. So please come up, let us know who that is. Fill out the QR code form with your feedback as well online, and that would be really helpful. So Aaliyah, where does our slideshow kind of end up here? Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, so thank you. So, Aaliyah, if you don't mind getting the stuff up there, but I'm just gonna, I'll just grab this. So, just so you know kind of like where this is just the background information we didn't give you already, but, because we didn't want to guide the conversation too much. We wanted to hear from you first, but there are a lot of efforts underway already. There's the new state level effort, Resilient Coasts. It's very, very new. They're out there having surveys and conversations with folks in different industries. And we're very excited about this because the Commission and Save the Harbor have been talking and advocating for a long time for less of a piecemeal approach. You know, when you talk about maintenance on a beach or access to a specific beach, that can be really case by case. When you're talking about climate resiliency, we know that the water doesn't care where each boundary ends, and there's going to be some isolated things you can address, but there's also going to be stuff that's like, you got to look bigger picture at this stuff. So that's one thing that's going on. There's a lot of city level efforts already happening, conversations going on, plans happening to address climate resiliency. We know Juan got the climate committee started here. And then, just so you don't think we don't know what we're talking about at all, but we know there are resources out there. There are strategies that are nature-based solutions that use the power of nature to kind of work with the ecosystem, work with the energy that the storms and the waves are coming in. Not every one of these is right for every community, but there are different things that we are going to be exploring based on what we heard from you here to be able to make those recommendations. Things like cobble berms that, you know, they move with the tide. They help prevent erosion, especially at the base of dunes, near the base of seawalls. Dune plantings also help hold, as Tony you talked about, help hold the sand in place. Seawalls, they're not necessarily a nature-based solution, but they are a solution, something we already have here, something that might be something we have to consider looking at more. I think my next slide has the really dramatic examples. Yeah, no, that's living seawalls. They're not in the right order here, I guess. I'll get back to that. But yeah, living seawalls, in some places it might be that we just really have to put up that hardscape, but we can still accentuate and elevate the biodiversity and the ecosystem, create spaces that for the wildlife to thrive in that intertidal area. Oh yeah, here we go. I don't think it looks as appealing to most folks, but in some places, it might be that a really big seawall is what we're going to need to do to protect, depending on what our priorities are. This is some things that are going up in Japan. These are tsunami barriers that are just, you have to have that to when the earthquake comes, you just gotta be ready. And then there's a lot of places that are piloting things like property buyback programs. This is Oakwood Beach. Yeah, I get it confused with Oak Island, but it's Oakwood Beach in Staten Island. This was done on a little bit more of an emergency basis. It wasn't ideal for the folks there. About 300 homes had to get kind of bought up, but 10 years on, and you've got this whole area that's been kind of a great return to nature, and it's operating in a more protective way. The counterpart to that is a place called Imperial Beach, south of San Diego, and they've got a 50 to 100-year plan. They're doing it very intentionally. No one's getting displaced, but they are investing their dollars, they're fundraising, they're getting support from the state to, as people put their houses on the market, as these properties become available, buying them back, because they've identified the beach is the biggest priority there. It's Imperial Beach. If you don't have the beach, you don't have an economy, you don't have a town. So that's the priority for them. And those are some of the examples that are kind of being looked at. Yeah, so that's our show. We do really appreciate you all. That's our show. I'll tap dance at the end. Yeah, we'll stick around. We'd love if folks took some of the food. Please grab a couple wraps. Please eat some more. And come talk to us. Make sure Aaliyah, Megan, or Emma give you some stickers and get your votes up there so that we can keep doing all our backroom work after this and make sense of all this information. Happy Ramadan.